What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mo Buckets podcast. My name is Hoodie Ben. To my right, we got the Vision. Frankie Vision, what's good?
What's good, man? 20 games into the season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we got beside him, we got Mr. No Look Pass, Magic Mitch.
What up? What up?
Yo, how you guys feeling, man? How you guys feeling 20 games in?
Yo, we starting to see some players and some teams try to make some separation. Interesting storylines coming through.
So much drama right now in the NBA.
Goodness, man.
So much
It's almost
drama.
like it's like WWE.
Oh, this is like the
or
year.
more than WWE.
This is like the year of just in-season drama.
It's crazy, man. On the court, off the court, from
anything in between.
And everything
from
in
head
between.
to toe, man. Everything in between. All right, cool. Yo, let's jump into this. We got the Mo Buckets for this week. We got, man, the new look Philadelphia 76ers.
Now they always say congratulations.
They're fresh off, acquiring their boy Jimmy Butler. They're 5-2 since they've picked him up. These guys are rolling right now, man. They're third in the East. They've got big W's against Utah, Charlotte, Phoenix, New Orleans, Brooklyn. They did have L's against Orlando and Cleveland, but overall, Jimmy Buckets, he's making impact that we all thought he would be. He's hit 2 game-winning threes already. He's had big defensive plays. What's your new take on these new look Sixers?
So I'll say that I was pretty harsh on them when they made the trade.
C minus.
I put C minus or C plus.
All right,
Anyways, C, it was a C. I gave him a C. Jimmy Butler's been proving me wrong so far. 2 game winners, I think from the exact same spot too on the court. Didn't expect him to make this big of an impact right away. I still don't know if I want to kind of go off of that C plus grade that I gave him because I'm thinking more long term with them, that grade. But no, they've definitely been surprising.
Mm-hmm. Like you said too, Jimmy Butler's he's fitting into the chemistry of the team. They're trusting each other and they're giving him the looks to actually close out the game, which I thought was quite shocking. Like for a new player to just seamlessly fit in and to be taking these end game shots.
Yeah.
That's a lot of trust, right? On the front of Joel Embiid, on Simmons. But you got to say, looking at the composition, he is the guy you want taking the shot. He's got the ability to stretch the shot out. Markelle Fultz, probably not there right now. JJ Redick, he's kind of slowing down the last few games. But you're really starting to see this team come through. And if you look at the shot chart over the last few games, they're so efficient, man. Most of their makes have been right at the basket or from deep in the 3, right? Not many long-range 2s, and that's what you want to see in today's NBA. So all in all, man, Philly is really starting to shape together.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to sound like a hater, but it's going to be definitely interesting to see what happens when adversity hits this team, because it will, right?
True.
At some point it will, and kind of see how that all shakes out within the locker room, how they interact with each other when, this is like the honeymoon phase right now, right?
True, yeah.
So once there's actual problems that are start to happen, it'd be interesting to see what happens with this team.
Do you think they have the personnel to deal with that adversity though? Because you
I
got
don't know.
Jimmy. Because I agree with you. Like this right now, 5-2. Like they've yet to face. I guess the competition they've had so far is relatively easy. But once you start taking on, the Golden States, then when they start taking on let's say Raptors or whoever, Boston even, they're gonna get punched in the face. And at that point, how do they respond, right? But you having a guy like Jimmy Butler who's gone through so much. This guy's as tough as they come. I'm not as worried about that. Like I'm more worried about the shooting that we still talk about. They have guys that have been stepping up. Jimmy Butler's hit a couple of threes. Wilson Chandler. They also have Landry Shamet.
Oh, the rookie.
The rookie. He's actually been playing really well.
Not bad.
Yeah,
His role is just to shoot, and he's filling that, right?
Exactly. So I'm more worried about that sense in that, because at the end of the day, they still have the star powers. Jimmy Butler is the closer that they needed, and we're seeing it from that perspective. But I don't know, man. Frankie, what you got?
It's a tough one, man. I think on defense, what's really holding them together is their defense. And now when you see the monster of Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Jimmy Butler, there are 3 stars all hold it down on defense, right?
Yeah.
And I think that shows a lot. And Wilson Chandler, he's fitting in so well alongside these guys. And it's unique because in a league where everyone's kind of gone small, Philly is going big, especially with Ben Simmons at the point. And again, we talk about the pieces they need right now for shooting. They've still got 60 games to figure that out. And they've still got, the trade deadline to make some roster changes.
True.
If you see how they've been doing in the last bit, I feel like more and more players are going to be attracted to this team as a destination, right? Come trade deadline, Philly's going to be a legitimate contender on the East, right? So you have all these bio candidates, like, hey, maybe even Melo, who knows? Who are, vets, just pieces who can shoot, right? Pieces who can shoot, spread the floor. Because Philly's got the roster to keep you up on defense, right? So, man, I think they've got a lot of potential, man. If Jimmy Butler actually re-signs, this is going to be a problem.
It's interesting because Philly wasn't, coming into the season, they were one of the top teams in the East, right? And, they probably didn't start off as great as they wanted, and then they had to make this trade, or they felt they needed to make this trade to get better. Just seeing how good Toronto, how good Milwaukee, how good they were. It's just going to be interesting to see how they're going to try and acquire those other pieces, right? They gave up, 2 key pieces in Covington and Sarge, and if you look at their rosters, there's not a whole lot of other value that they can trade away to get pieces that actually help them this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, they've kind of run out of draft picks. A lot of their future assets they've already traded away. Right now, if you look at their team, they need another type of player like Covington. If they had another Covington right now, they would be a complete team. And they don't really have the assets to convert to get a player like Covington back. So that's a good point. Maybe they can get someone off the waiver again, like maybe someone like Melo,
like a buyout,
somewhere. Yeah. But you're right. They don't have that many assets left. So that's a good point. And yeah, man, that's a challenge.
It's tough, right? And again, when you look at them in the context of the East and the top teams in the East, where does the past few games, does it change anything now that we've seen Jimmy Butler play with them?
I think if anything, it gives them it gives us a good look into how they can perform in the playoffs, right? Like, I think ultimately where they end up in the regular season at this point with this roster that they have, it doesn't matter too much. I agree they need to beef up their bench a little bit, but once you hit the playoffs and the rotation shorten a bit, that 7-8 players that they have, assuming they can pick up, a couple of decent pieces off the waiver or like even through trades in the second half of the season, I still like where they're at in terms of the personnel that they have. Because, like, yes, you're right. Even with all the current struggles that they have right now, even with the lack of shooting, at the end of the day, they're still finding ways to win. Like, they're still finding ways to win games. And that's what, like, they're going to be a grinded out type of team. They're not going to be a high scoring team, down the stretch. Like, these guys are built on defense. And they're going to have that solidified. That's something that's not really going to waver with those three. To your point, Frankie, about their defensive presence, man, seeing what Joel Embiid is doing, like the fact that he can guard essentially 2 through the 5 right now, even when they switch out on perimeters, like he reminds me a lot of what Hakeem did back in the day. Just his length, his speed, his agility on the perimeter. It's impressive, man.
He's a fast big man with like the reach, the length, and he hustles too. Like, I think there's a lot of people were kind of questioning his mobility given his injury past, but to see what he's doing, he, like you said, he's guarding 2 to 5. He's switching up on all the plays. He's guarding the 3-point line too, right? So I think that's as a big man, that's one of the distinguishing factors for Embiid. The fact is he's actually able to close out on the 3-point line himself, and he hustles, man. Like, dude, this team, like you said, is built on defense. I think they've got the right chemistry, and like they've just got the foundations.
Yeah, the foundation is there. The rest is going to fall in place. The rest they'll be able to add in, and players will be able to get into the roles. JJ Redick obviously isn't going to continue to shoot this bad. He's going to start picking it up too. So I'm not worried. If I'm a Philly fan, I like this.
This is a great time to be a Philly fan, man.
True.
What do you guys think of Embiid's chances to win MVP? So right now he's averaging 28 points per game, 13 boards a game, 3.5 assists a game, 2 blocks a game.
He's number 1 in fantasy right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's killing it right now. He's like one of the best. Yeah. That's a good question, man. When you brought up the MVP discussion, that's
like those are MVP.
Yeah, those
numbers,
are MVP
right?
type numbers. The only issue is, I think, with Joel Embiid, you've got this like team of 3-headed stars, and it's hard for him to separate himself as much as a team like Milwaukee per se. When you've got Giannis,
you rely
being
so much
the
on
clear, definitive leader, right? And that's the thing. I think their numbers are actually quite similar between Giannis and Joel Embiid, but Giannis just being who he is on that team, there's no doubt. Like, there's no doubt this is the superstar. And, dude, he's killing it this season, man. I totally agree with Joel Embiid's stats, But I definitely think right now, man, it's Giannis' season.
I don't think he has a storyline to win MVP, but I like him for as a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's often overlooked in that category. Like people like to look at.
He was awesome last year.
Yeah, and he does everything for them. Like you're talking about like anchor. Like I just said, like how many fives do you know that can guard that perimeter and recover in time? Like I can only think of like a handful of players. Maybe like AD is another one, but like
he's improved his consistency.
Yeah,
his free throw shooting is good too. Yeah. His 3-point shooting is actually not bad. Like there's not much more you can ask for in a big man.
It's weird though. So I'm just looking at their defense and where they rank. They're 16th in defense right now, and 13th in offense.
Interesting.
So I mean, like again, I agree though that Embiid when he's on the court, he's really really good. Especially on the defensive end. I think it's maybe just the rest of the team that kind of has to step it up.
And remember, they're still adjusting right now. It's only a small sample size, 7 games in. But yeah, we'll keep an eye out, man. We'll see where the Sixers can land at the end of the season. But we know that the ceiling for his team has definitely been raised. So Philly, y'all take the belt for this week. On the flip side, we got the no buckets of the week. This one goes to the Boston Celtics. These guys are, man, they're struggling right now. For a team that's come into this season with, essentially they were finals or I don't want to say finals or bust, but they were right there, man. Coming out of the East favorites,
100%.
They were right there. Right now, these guys are currently 7th in the East. They're 10-10. And they've lost 4 of the last 5 games. And when you look at these games, they're all very winnable. Losses against Dallas, New York, Charlotte, Utah. Their lone win was against ATL because let's face it, if you lose to Atlanta too, man, you might as well give it up, man. Might as well pack it in for the season. But where do you guys think these guys are? Their heads at right now? Obviously, they're struggling. Are you worried if you're a Boston fan?
If I was a Boston fan, the thing that I'd be thinking about the most is this team probably they exceeded expectations last season, and because of those expectations coming into this season, there's kind of no way that they were going to meet those expectations off the bat. I mean, they're bringing in 2 huge stars back to their team, into their rotation, right? Hayward and Kyrie. And I think, again, hindsight's 2020, but when you look back and you think of, okay, let's incorporate 2 top players and let's incorporate them back into our roster, it was always going to be a bumpy ride. And I think, the recent run that they've had is definitely showing that.
I'm going to say something that might be crazy.
Hot takes.
But I think by the end of the season, Gordon Hayward will not be a Boston Celtic.
Wow.
If Danny Ainge is known to go all in on the cards, and I think if you look at how they've been doing, Gordon Hayward is just not ready, right? Theoretically, if he was healthy, it would work, but you're starting to see that he's just not physically there. And like you said, the expectations for the Celtics this year is it's championship or bust. If I'm the Celtics right now, that is the goal, to win a chip.
Is it though? I mean, the
is.
2, you're hinging this on Kyrie's 26 years old.
Okay.
You have Tatum, who's only 21. Jaylen Brown's also really young.
22, I think.
Yeah, so they're still a really young team when you really think about it. They're very young. They just happen to also have, Al Horford's getting up there. Hayward's 28. When you look at them, again, I agree that the goal is championship, but I think it's still a little early. I think if you were expecting them to peak at this point, they still have years. They still have time to peak.
They still have time, but what led me to say that was because I think we're starting to see Jason Tatum, if given the minutes, can probably do better than what Gordon Hayward's doing now. But even as he gets better, and we're starting to see they need the spacing at that position. They have enough forwards. With having Gordon Hayward there, it just seems to bring the fluid of the game down. And you want to see Jason Tatum develop. I think there's so much more value you can get by giving Jason Tatum the minutes again so that he can replicate
but
the season he had last year.
Tatum's getting over 30 minutes a game right now.
But he's not.
I think it's less about, taking Gordon Hayward out, playing Tatum more. When Tatum gets the ball right now, he's shooting. And I think if you also look at Jaylen Brown, when he gets the ball, he doesn't necessarily know exactly what to do. Like
Exactly.
the offense isn't there. And I think that's less to do about Gordon Hayward and more to do with just Brad Stevens trying to incorporate everyone back into the offense.
I don't know about that, man. I really think with Gordon Hayward being back in the lineup, that's exactly what's happening with Jason Tatum. He's doubting himself. He's not sure what role he plays in, and he's kind of deferring. And if you look at the way they've been playing, everyone is not moving anymore. Like what was amazing with Boston last year, especially when Terry Rozier was bringing the ball up or even Jason Tatum, everyone had a role and everyone was stepping up. But now you have this reliance on Kyrie Irving. You have this reliance on Gordon Hayward. And I think if you're the Boston Celtics, if you're Danny Ainge, if you really have the intention of, hey, it's all in, this is this year, maybe even next year, is championship or bust, I feel like you have the opportunity to translate Gordon Hayward into more assets. And at the same time, you open up minutes and opportunities for your young players to develop like they did last year.
What kind of assets do you think?
You can get future picks. You can get maybe another shooting guard. Because that's kind of what they're missing.
Who's
going
to give so Hayward he's getting paid $30 million.
Yep, he's a max.
This year,
he's a max.
Right? So and again, I agree that Hayward has not come back the way that when Paul George came back. It took him a bit of time to get back.
It did.
Right?
It did.
And I think it's the same thing. We just got to kind of wait and see with Hayward. He's only getting 26 minutes a game right now. And yeah, I agree. Like the shots that he's taking right now, he's trying to force it.
Yeah.
But I think again that just has to do with they just need time. They need time to incorporate these guys. I don't know if you can just blame that all on one player.
Yeah.
You can't blame it all on one player, I agree, but I just think if you're the Celtics, man, if you want to make a splash this year, you have the opportunity, truthfully, to trade Gordon Hayward. And some teams will definitely take him. He's a legit star, a legit vet star that might not be able to carry you this year, but you can see the development he can have. And I just don't see the Boston Celtics being a good home for Gordon Hayward.
So I think here's the problem with if you try to trade Gordon Hayward. This guy's value is super low right now because Boston is struggling so much. And if you look at what he's put up in the 18 games this season,
it's not been pretty.
Again, small sample size. He's only averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Field goal percentage, he's at 40%. Like he's not where he needs to be.
It's all career lows.
These are all career lows, right? And like I feel like the biggest question mark going into this was they saw how good Boston was without him. And the thinking was always, hey, when Gordon Hayward comes back, once he gets even close to 100%, that he'll be a legitimate all-star. And like the role he's given right now and with the opportunities, I think it's clear to say that he's not there. Like maybe down the line when halfway through the season, closer to the end of the season, he may get there. But it's one of those things. It is risky. It is risky, and this is why at the end of last season, after the playoff run, I asked him like one of the hot takes was like, if you're Danny Ainge, do you look to trade Gordon Hayward now, which was last season, while his value was still quote unquote high because no one saw how he would come back, in order to give Jason Tatum that room to develop, right? Like, and I totally agree with you. Like this is stunting Jason Tatum's growth. And whether it's done on purpose or not, like you could see it in how he's playing the game. He's hesitating, like he's not taking that step that let's say like a Donovan Mitchell or like Ben Simmons like would have.
He's nowhere near as aggressive as he was last year, right? And I think last year he just had the freedom to say, something. Right now, our 2 stars are injured. Trust in these rookies to just do what they can, and they stepped up.
Tatum is shooting. That's the thing, right? Like
I just don't think he's as
shooting.
aggressive. But it's not good shots, like you said. He's not playing in the style of the game.
Is that I don't know if that's the fault. You can't that's not the fault of one player, right?
No, agreed.
That's to me, that's coaching needs to figure this out.
But
they need time.
I just feel as though the way you're seeing it play out now, if you're Danny Ainge, you have to consider trading Gordon Hayward.
But see, I agree with Ben in that if you try to trade him now, you're getting nothing back in return. I don't know if any team would give up even a first-round pick for paying for a $30 million player coming off of the injury that he had.
I think enough teams would give him a first-round pick. You telling me Gordon Hayward, I know he's banged up right now.
He's 28 years old too, right? So
I still think he's worth a legitimate first-round pick.
Given how valuable first-round picks are now, I think that the Celtics, if they are trying to make a trade, they're better off looking to see what they can get for Jaylen Brown. Because if Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward are your wings, and they're playing a lot of minutes, Jaylen Brown, he's going to get left out. And
True,
Jaylen Brown
true.
has potential. He's
He
so
does.
young.
He's a good wing. He's
He's
athletic.
like a potential, all NBA defensive player.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's stuck. He will always be stuck behind these two guys.
True.
Right?
True.
So I think that's where the value is, and that's where you can see what you can get. I just think that if you try and trade Hayward now, even if it's the right thing to do, you're not going to get enough back to make you put you over that hill.
Listen, I agree, man. This is not a good time to trade Gordon Hayward per se, but if any team can do it, it is the Boston Celtics, man. They've more times than not, they've ended off on the winning side of a trade. I just think when you look at the long-term picture of the Celtics, I really don't see how Gordon Hayward is going to fit beside Jason Tatum. You know what I mean? And I feel like with the expectations that they have to act fast, man. I think they're going to act sooner rather than later, and that's why.
Do they though? Okay, so here's the thing. They started off obviously slow this season, but looking at the next stretch of games, they have a relatively easy schedule going into December. If their record, let's say now, was instead of 10-10, if they can even go above, let's say like 500 over the next 10 games or so, like if they can even climb back to that, third, fourth seed in the East, do you think we'd still be having this discussion?
I don't even think it's about the fact that they're 10-10. I think it's the fact that you've seen Jason Tatum regress as much as he has. That's really what's triggering me to say this because, man, Jason Tatum, I think his potential, his ceiling, is higher than Gordon Hayward's.
I agree. I
agree.
And if you see the regression that's you're seeing in Tatum, I don't think it's worth it to wait for Gordon Hayward to eventually get better. I think if you're the Celtics, dude, you gamble on Jason Tatum. And in order to do that, you open up the minutes. And to do that, you trade Gordon Hayward. That's why I think, man, if any team's going to do it, it is the Boston Celtics. And hot take or not, man, I think it happens. I really think it happens, man.
The last thing I'll say on this is, again, I agree that you can try and trade Hayward, again, knowing that you're not going to get enough back in return. To your point of they need to do this now, 2019, the Celtics have potentially 4 first-round picks, right? So you're going to, if they get those picks, they're going to get better players. They're going to be able to develop internally. You can give Hayward that time to develop. And again, I think to me, it's just time that they need to gel.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's still a bit too early to jump the gun with them. Again, 18 games in, Gordon Hayward, after the injury he's come back from. Let's give him some time, man. Like I feel like, again, this is just based off of the record right now. I feel like if they were, let's say, instead of 10-10, they're like 15. 15-5. I don't think we'd be having the same discussion.
Last thing on it, do you think that they're going to end up top 4 team in the East?
Top
the
4.
end of the season.
Yes.
Top 4. On the East, top 4.
They'll still be there.
Because they're right now only 7. They're not far away. Detroit, Indiana, Orlando. I don't see them sustaining it the same
We still
way.
believe in them. It's
Still
just
believe in
it's
them.
tough right now.
It's that's all it is.
No,
And
but it's just I really think they took a step back from last year. Like
They
outside
have.
because
They have
Kyrie.
to.
No, but Kyrie, I think he'll step up. Like come playoff time, he'll be ready. I'm just really surprised at how Gordon, like beyond the injury, is just he doesn't seem to fit.
Did you see his injury?
It is.
You saw his injury.
I get it, but it's not. It's just his style of play does not seem to be fitting, and
because he's still playing as if he
He's
should be
tentative.
100%.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that balance fully back yet, and you can't blame him. You can't blame him.
If he's healthy, he's like he'll fit into any team. His ability to shoot, ability to drive, ability to pass. He will literally fit into any team. Let's just give him time.
fair enough.
All right, cool, Boston. Y'all take the L for this week. I'm not worried, but I think we gotta keep an eye out to see how things shake out with the Celtics. But a team that I am worried about, and I'm sure everybody is the Washington Wizards. Man, they're still, man, they have drama on the court. They got drama off the court.
Woo.
Shout out Dwight. But you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. That whole aura around the team right now, the whole culture, the whole build of the organization, it's just bad. This is beyond basketball, I think. And it's just, they're talking, everybody's saying that they got to blow up the team. You look at, John Wall is not happy. Bradley Beal is not happy. Dwight, there's issues with that. Like, I really don't know, man. What do you guys think of this whole dysfunction with the Washington Wizards?
I've already given up on them. Like, I think that there's so much wrong with that team.
Mm-hmm.
And on paper, they have talent. but
Yeah,
it's
great- on
just
They
paper,
do.
have
They
great talent.
really
They do.
do. And there's stretches where like defensively, you look at them, you're like, okay, like they shouldn't be this bad.
I mean, they had a huge comeback against the Clippers, but man, like if you were to be like, okay, I'm gonna bet money on the Wizards, you better hope they're facing Atlanta. You better hope that they're facing the Knicks, and even then, they'll probably lose.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this because we know that at the end of the day, it comes down to if they're gonna blow this team up, it's got to be either John Wall or Bradley Beal, right?
Or both.
Or both.
realistically.
Or both. I agree. So, assuming that they're gonna just trade one to start, who's the first piece you try to move? Is it John Wall, who's got that max contract at 28 years old, or is it Bradley Beal, who's 25 with a more reasonable contract over the next couple years?
I think when you look at how this is composed, man, if you're gonna really blow it up, you're gonna start with John Wall. It breaks my heart to say this. Even though he's a great point guard, he's just not translating in today's league. Bradley Beal, I think no matter what, he's still an asset you can keep on any team, right? A shooting guard that can shoot threes, consistent. He's efficient. His efficiency is not bad. His defense is, it's subpar. It's kind of there, but he's still a good fit in today's league. John Wall, you just don't see point guards who can't shoot threes being successful. And I think because of his contract too, that's the first thing you aim to move.
I know how much this hurts you to say all this.
Why does it
hurts
break
you,
your
man.
heart? What's
loves
your
John Wall.
what's your
He
connection
loves
to
John
John
Wall.
You
Wall?
see his high school mixtape? You see John Wall? Yo, John Wall had
That
one of
was
the
the
most
best mixtape of
fire
all
high
time.
school mixtapes ever. Yo, shout out who
mixtape?
Who mixtape? That was one of the most ridiculous highlight videos I've ever seen. And
Yo, but beyond high school, realistically,
He
what has he
delivered, though.
done beyond high school?
dude,
what has
he
done?
delivered, man. Like his stats are up there. He's a consistent all-star. It breaks my heart to see his team not succeed. And
It's his attitude, though.
It's a combination of things, man. I really thought Dwight Howard might be the person to bring it all together, to be honest. He's a center. Like he's a prototypical center that could have been well on this team. It just has not
If
translated.
you're relying on Dwight Howard to bring your team together,
just anchor the defense.
gonna be
anchor
tough.
the defense, man. Catch some lobs and dunk the ball.
Defensive Player of the Year Dwight is long gone.
That's true. I thought he'd bring his old Magic days back, because that was kind of the same roster. Like you surrounded him with shooters and Dwight in the middle.
So the only thing I want to kind of say about John Wall is he actually has a trade kicker in his contract, and I heard this on the low post. But if he gets traded before July 1st of 2019, the Wizards will have to pay $21 million to get rid of him.
That's a 15% trade
Yeah.
kicker, right?
So-
That's ridiculous.
And so you have a choice if you're the Wizards. You're either paying $21 million to get rid of him now, or you're potentially on the hook for $40 million
yeah.
once his max contract kicks in.
Yeah, so just in terms of his contract, so John Wall right now has 5 years, $142 million left on his contract. That's hefty, man. And then Bradley Beal's got 3 years at relatively, I guess a lower contract, more manageable, which is $81 million. And I agree with you though. Actually, no, I don't agree with you, Frankie, in that if they're gonna blow it up because of the low value that John Wall has right now, and just the overall bad aura around him. No team wants to pick up John Wall, man.
You think no team wants John Wall?
It's already been reported that very few teams are interested in John Wall.
I could
All the
see,
interest is with Bradley Beal.
I could see Phoenix.
I can see a lot of teams picking
Phoenix,
up.
Orlando, Pelicans, those types of teams, right? Like Pelicans need to keep Anthony Davis, right?
I think the Knicks need a point guard. The Knicks can really
Knicks
take
need
John Wall.
everybody. Knicks need. You know what? John Wall would be a good fit for the Knicks because that's a poisonous culture too. Nobody excels there.
Two negatives make a positive.
There you go, man.
No, but okay, to bring it back though, what type of point guard have we seen that is not a great shooter succeed?
Russell Westbrook.
Westbrook's probably the best.
MVP. But that's the
But
thing.
it's not. Here's the thing with John Wall though. It's not even about the lack of shooting. The lack of shooting is obviously a big key because he's only shooting 32% from 3-point range this season. Bradley Beal he's struggling from threes this season too. He's only shooting around like low to mid 30s in terms of his percentage, but it's just their overall ability to blend in with the team, right? Like Bradley Beal does that. He can be off the ball, he come off the picks. He plays great defense. I just feel like if John Wall is having a bad game, you can tell that John Wall is having a bad game. He's giving he's not gonna give the effort on defense. He's gonna start pointing fingers, and he just has like an overall just like sour vibe to him.
That
Be
is
like,
true.
own up to what you're doing. That at the end of the day, you're supposed to be a franchise player. You're getting paid franchise player money. You're not producing franchise player value or effort. That's what
he is
it
a
comes
very
down to.
emotional player. Like you're right. When he's having a bad game, you see him slump. But when he has like intense games against players like Golden State, like whenever he plays against Curry, he really steps up his game, and that's why you fall in love with John Wall, man. When he's having an intense game,
Who's fallen in love?
Dude.
The only one that's
used to
fallen
be
in
good.
love is you.
dude, like I remember watching those matchups against him and like Steph Curry. It was incredible, man. Like he goes back, he was trading buckets, getting steals, getting blocks. There's moments where you see John Wall put it all together, and that's what just kills me because I think all the potential is there. The lineup is there. You know what I mean? Like 1 to 5, they've got a solid lineup to close the game.
So that's the thing, though, right? Like
don't know what
he
it
has moments. Sometimes it's there. He's 28.
He's in his prime, man. 28 is
He
in
should
his
be
prime.
In his prime, but he still can't shoot.
You know what this is? It's like when you look at a player and you Google their highlights, and you're like, yo, this
YouTube.
guy's got amazing highlights. And then you look at when they actually play. You're like, the moments are there, the highlights are there, and the potential has always been there with him. But Mitch, I like your point. The fact that he's 28. How many more years are you going to bank on this potential? Like he got this max deal because of, again, they're still saying that he was all-star a couple years in a row. He still got the potential. But at some point, you got to be like, listen, we gotta lick our wounds, and we gotta. This isn't our guy.
Okay, I guess we'll close in on this. Like, do you think it's because honestly, I don't think it's because John Wall's a bad player. I think it's because John Wall in today's league, as a point guard who can't shoot, is just not going to be successful. Do you think that's the ultimate reason, or is it more so than that?
It's John Wall's ego versus John Wall.
I think it's a mix, right? Like if this was the 90s and he didn't have to shoot, I think he'd do better. He'd be more valuable. But we're not in the 90s.
We're not in the 90s
Right?
no more, man.
Your game has to evolve, and you look at players like Trae Young, where they're coming into the league shooting from everywhere. And John Wall, he has a chance. He had the chance to keep developing. But we're still saying the same things that we said about him in his rookie year.
True.
He can't shoot. Sometimes he plays out of control. Sometimes he doesn't give it 100% all the time. And I think you're seeing that, and it hasn't changed.
I hear you, man.
So the other thing too is Ben, you give up Bradley Beal. What about Otto Porter?
Yeah, he's
mean,
the other
he's
piece.
getting
That's
paid.
valid. Yeah.
He's a 3-and-D wing, and that's the type of player
That's got
that
good
every
value.
single team needs.
But here's the thing, though. I agree that Otto Porter is another attractive candidate for teams. But if you're Washington, even if you bring in another piece, because you're at the end of the day, you're not going to get a franchise player for Otto Porter. You're still going to build around John Wall and Bradley Beal. So I feel like you're kind of bringing like a Band-Aid for this big solution that you have.
Oh no! I mean, like, you trade all of them if you can.
Oh.
You're not trying to win. You're trading Otto
No, I
Porter
kind of
for
agree.
whatever you can,
Like
whatever you can get.
Yo,
Right?
in these, like, no matter what they do, they're not beating the Golden State Warriors, right? And especially these next few
Golden
years.
Warriors are not beating like.
Let's not aim
No,
that
but that's
high,
what I'm trying to
Frankie.
say,
Let's-
right? Like, there's no trade they can make to really push them over the top. So that's why you're right. If you can trade John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter, I trade all of them. You trade all of them in the hopes that once the Golden State era is over, you are ready for the next phase, right? And that's just what it is, man.
You trade everybody and you build around Dwight.
You build around Dwight.
Dwight and his off-court personality.
Oh, man.
This
All right, yo.
Cut.
All right, let's keep it moving, man. Let's keep it moving. So, on to other point guards who can't shoot. Markelle Fultz, man. No longer in the long-term plans of the Sixers. I think this is one of the craziest.
It's bizarre.
It's one of the most bizarre storylines ever, where you see a legitimate college player, shows his capabilities in the college game. He had everything. He had a good body, plays defense, solid shot.
He could shoot. No,
He could shoot.
he
If
could
you look
shoot
at his
back
college,
then, yeah.
he had form. Hey, being the consensus number 1 pick to all of a sudden just implode. To now seeing shoulder specialists nonstop. Like, what's really going on with this kid, man? What is going on here?
I hate to sound like a Markelle Fultz hater, but I think it's time to call it what it is, man. Markelle Fultz is damaged goods. I hate to say it, man, because like you said, when you watch this guy's mixtapes in college, this guy, even games, man, he could shoot. He could flat.
He had
a
passing,
great
he had
form.
vision.
Yeah, but to see how he shoots now, how many different free throw forms have you seen him
Oh
shoot
my
this
goodness,
year?
man.
Right?
He pump faked. He had a pump fake free throw. I was like, what?
This guy traveled. He traveled at the free throw line. So and here's the thing, man. I think we gotta call it ace of spades, man. He will never have. Like he would never be a good shooter. I think it's just what it is. Like I'm not gonna hear, and I'm not saying it to knock him because he has other aspects of his game. He's still a great slasher because he's still a very athletic, defender, finisher. He'll still have that. He could probably still develop a great mid range, but to even have the hope that he's gonna turn back into the shooter that he once was, I think that's just false hope at this point.
But okay,
man.
what is it though? Is it his shoulder? Is it his mental game?
Bro, how many shoulder specialists has this guy seen?
Only he knows his body, man. Only he knows his body, right? If he says he's hurting, maybe he's hurting. The doctor might say he's not hurting, but if he says he's hurting, who are you to say he's not, right? Like,
so whether he's hurting or not, like I'm not saying that he's lying that he's not hurting, but even if you're hurting, like, can that really excuse your performance, or how long can that excuse your performance for? Let's be real.
So I think that he is a perfect example of why your mental health is so important, and he needs to go see some sort of sports psychologist or something, because something's not right. Something's not right, up there. And if you take that, take all that part of it, right, and his weird shot and his trainer and all that stuff and changing a shot. If you also just look at what he was drafted into, the GM that drafted him got fired for burner accounts on his Twitter, right?
That's
Trashing all the players.
That's his wife, though.
It doesn't matter, right? You have he's coming into dysfunction already.
He is.
It's weird that maybe that part kind of has been swept under the rug and all the blame is being put on Markelle Fultz. It could be that any player that got put into that situation, if they had some sort of, issues mentally, I think anyone would have kind of been they would have suffered through it. It's a tough thing. This kid's only 20 years old.
It is.
But is this a mental thing or is this strictly a physical thing? Because I think this could be a physical thing.
It's weird because beyond mental or physical, the fact that he's changed his form so many times, that's the shocker. The thing is, you can be injured. That's fine. You take some time off. You see some specialists. You rehab your body, and eventually you get back to the game. But your form is usually the same. It's just odd to see a player change his form so drastically, not just from the free throw line, but from the three-point line. Like, every shot he's taken seems to have changed over and over again. And that, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what causes that.
This is the thing. Like, where's the Philly staff to intervene in all this? Like, your team, you're a professional NBA team. You work out with these players every day. And yet, you're letting a player who's your number one overall pick, and, he was supposed to be that next of the big three for them.
Right now, if you really think about it, if he actually played to his potential, this is the best environment for him to play in. You have a point guard in Ben Simmons, who's like a small forward that can actually play off the ball. You've got Joel Embiid, a strong center that can stretch the floor. And you've also got Jimmy Butler on the wing to help you out. This is, if Markelle Fultz played to his potential, Philly would be it'd be a crazy superstar contender, man.
If Fultz was at his potential, they wouldn't have needed to trade for Butler.
They wouldn't have.
Agreed.
But I still think Butler is a great addition, though, to the team.
Even if he is, they wouldn't have needed him. And Fultz would have solved so many issues for them. Like, to me, if Fultz played to his potential, we'd be talking about Philly as, they're competing for a title.
They're competing against the Golden State Warriors.
Right now, we're not talking about them competing for a title. We're talking about them just competing for the East.
Dude, the fact that management, whether it was leaked or not, the fact that it was even reported that Fultz is no longer in the plans of the Sixers, I think it's shown that Sixers have run out of answers, right? Like, they've had 2 years to figure this out. More than that.
He's literally only 20 years old. That's the age of rookies coming into the league.
So much, I agree with that. I think age is one thing. That, I think the potential is still there. But at the end of the day, regardless of age, if you can't get a proper shooting form within this 2 year span, and you're working with professional trainers, you're working with a professional organization that's invested everything into you, that's an issue, man. It's one of the basic fundamentals of basketball. Is if you couldn't dribble with one hand, there's only so much that you can overcome with that, with your other hand or whatnot. But there's only so much you can do in terms of having layouts, being a physical, specimen, being able to be a good slasher. You still need to be able to shoot the ball.
That's true.
As long as you can't shoot the ball, no team, no one's gonna guard you. They're always gonna sag off of them.
As a shooter too, the most important thing is your trust in your form.
Wait,
right?
Frankie, did you just say you're a shooter?
As
a
get
shooter?
out of here, man. I'll get my shot up there. But I'm just like, with Fultz, man, with any good shooter, you have to have trust in your form. It's almost like reflex, right? And you're right, man. I don't know how he's ever going to get back to that comfort zone.
See, but that's why, again, I put a lot of the blame for this whole thing on Philly and the team itself, because they should have been on top of this. They're the ones who drafted him. They potentially saw this in workouts, and it can't just be that, he went away for the summer, changed his whole shot and came back and we didn't know about it.
Right.
That's to me, you blame whoever's in charge of that.
I don't think anybody's blaming Markelle Fultz, to be fair. I think he was put in a bad situation. Like, he did what he could. Obviously, maybe the people around him he should have surrounded with better, but at the end of the day, what's done is done, right? Like, first overall draft pick, like that's already, we know how that came out. But I think really the question is, it's like, if you look at Philly and you look at Markelle Fultz, is it really time for both of them to move on? That's what it comes down to.
That's a tough one, because I think that leads to the question, what value can he bring? Like, if you're going to make a trade for him, if you're going to offer him out into the market, what are you going to get back? You're not going to get another first round pick back.
I mean,
that's for sure.
It's tough, right? Like, I think if you're like a team like Orlando, Phoenix, someone who's a team that's rebuilding and has they can give him that shot and just handle the ball, no repercussions, just play your game and get better. He has value then, I think, at that point, because again, he's only 20 years old. He's really, really young, and I think a change of scenery would definitely do him some good, just to get out of that whole situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're Philly, on the other hand, like, at this point, you've done what you can for Markelle Fultz, and it's like, at this point, he's more of a distraction than adding value. And I hate, again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a hater, but like, when they picked up Jimmy Butler, that window switched to a win now mentality, right? Like, and the last thing you want is to have this lingering distraction. You have such such positive and good momentum in Jimmy Butler. You have to be able to minimize your losses at this point, whether or not it's Markelle Fultz, and you try to get whatever you can. You entertain the offers, you see what's available, and maybe it's like, even if you take him at a loss, you bring in a player that can add more value right now. Because that window, that Jimmy Butler window, I think that's more important than the potential that Fultz can provide.
That's a good point, man. Like, I really thought Jimmy Butler might be able to add, some type of context and really kind of guide him through the development. And with Elton Brand being a new GM as well, maybe they can shed some light on how they can improve the process for Fultz. It's just shocking, man. Like, with the recent news, I really thought Philly kind of, once they made the trade for Jimmy Butler, I really thought they'd go all in and bringing Fultz into the lineup and like really develop him.
He already was. They were starting him at the beginning of the season, right? Because they wanted to see what they had, and then they're like, okay.
But I thought
there's nothing there.
I just thought with the addition of Butler, though, they go through more of an effort to make him ready now.
You can't play him with that lineup.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, it's beyond Fultz's age. It's beyond everything else he brings to the table. It's literally the fact that he's a professional basketball player that can't shoot, that doesn't really know how to shoot. Like, and that kills me to say it, but what real value can you add to that? Like, that's a big negative.
He just needs to talk to some sort of therapist or something, because he could shoot, right? So that's the thing that, for me, it's, you have players who come into the league that for sure they can't shoot, but he could shoot.
He could, but
he just needs to remember how.
Remember how Landry Fields was on the Raptors for a while? He could shoot, but then he had that big like nerve injury where it's just like he could never recover. He could never shoot again. And I don't know, like, obviously with the shoulder it's super complex, but I don't know. Time can only tell, but I really think, I guess we'll just do a quick wrap up. If you're Philly, do you part ways with Markelle Fultz? Frankie, go. Yes or no?
I say you keep him, to be honest. I think there actually is potential for his development, and they need a point guard. That's exactly what they need. They need a point guard. I think you have to keep him, man, because you traded up for this guy. You gave up a lot. Maybe with Jimmy Butler's guidance, with Elton Brand as a new GM, maybe there's hope. But that's me being optimistic.
Okay, Mitch.
I'd keep him too, solely because I don't think that they'll get what they need back for him. He's really their last trade piece, right? And I think you just need to hold on to him, hope that he develops, and then maybe you flip him later.
You guys are too generous, man. You guys are.
Yo, Ben Harsh, man.
20 years
listen,
old. 20 years old.
I'm Danny Ainge over here. I'm pulling the trigger. Listen, it was fun while it lasted, man. Markelle Fultz, we respect you, but you gotta go, bro. You gotta go. All right, cool. So let's move on to another topic that's become interesting recently. Greg Popovich and Kawhi Leonard, man. Looks like it's sounding like it's been a bad breakup, and both the exes have been taking mini shots at each other. We got Greg Popovich. To be fair, he wasn't technically questioning Kawhi's leadership ability, but he did mention to the press, and I quote, that Kawhi was a great player, but he wasn't a leader or anything. Manu and Patty were the leaders. Kawhi's talent will always be missed, but that leadership wasn't his deal at the time. That may come as he progresses. And obviously, I think Kawhi Leonard, he took the high road, and he did address it. He said that it's just funny to me. I don't know if he's talking about last year or not, but I guess when you stop playing, they forget how you lead. And it's been an interesting back and forth. And I guess like the what that really addressed was just, I guess, modern day leadership, because a lot of people came out and defended Kawhi and said that, hey, listen, just because he wasn't a vocal leader back then doesn't mean that he's not, he wasn't exhibiting leadership abilities in other ways, right? And I think like when you look at other players in the league and just players overall and what we consider leaders and not leaders, I think it's interesting that every player leads by his or her own example, right? And like they use what their strengths are. And I thought I'd bring that to the discussion, in terms of looking at, are there any good leaders in the NBA that you guys, like? And I guess like overall, like how would you define a good leader versus a good player in today's league?
I think that's a tough one, man, because in today's modern era, the type of leadership is different. In the past, we've seen some very vocal leaders, such as KG, who are, a dominant presence on the court, but even off the court, they're so vocal, whether it's in coaching, whether it's in the locker room, that you just see an aura. Like you literally see the presence of KG, whether he was on Minnesota, whether he was on Boston, even when he was on the Brooklyn Nets. He carried this leadership presence that's very rare to see. And in today's league, I'm not sure if it's the spotlight or whether it's the age of social media, but you don't see that basketball leadership like you did before. And I think that's important because that leadership translates to not just moments on the floor. It translates to the locker room. It translates to the practices. It translates to, the night practices. It translates to the flights. And that's what really translates to success in team championships, And I think, it's a huge element that we need to, like, that's so crucial to successful teams. I don't know, man. Like, that's a good question. What defines a good leader?
I think when you look at teams like the Warriors, obviously you have Curry, who, by all accounts, like he leads that team. But then also with Curry, you have someone like Draymond. Mm-hmm. And Draymond, he is that vocal guy, right? He's commanding that. He has a lot of demands on his teammates. And
he calls people out.
He's not afraid to call them out, right? And that's something that KG, I'm sure, was exactly like in the locker room.
Yo, making Big Baby cry. Remember Big Baby messed up? He made him cry right there on the bench.
So that's the thing, though. Like when we recently saw the drama between KD and Draymond, and Draymond probably took it a bit too far. So, is it that there's no vocal leaders, or is it that players these days are a bit too soft?
That's actually a really good team to bring up, like with the Warriors, because I'm gonna ask each of you guys this. Looking at that team, who would you say, if you had to pick one leader between Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and KD, who's the leader of that team?
Oh, it's Steph Curry. Easy. He's longest tenured, and also he's really the superstar that brought Golden State to the next level.
But we're not talking about best player. We're talking about the best leader.
But he defined the style of Golden State's play. Like without Curry, Golden State's not Golden State.
So I think when I look at Curry, I kind of see him in the same way that Kawhi Leonard is with the Raptors, the same way Tim Duncan was with the Spurs. He's leading by example. He's leading by, hey, I'm gonna make my shot the best ever in history, and the way you do that is practicing, right? So he demonstrates his leadership by showing how good and how much work you need to put in to be good. Whereas you have someone like Draymond, vocally, he's, I would say, that heart and soul of that team. He's the one who, you know, you can see him in you know, whenever in timeouts, you see him in the locker room, and he's giving those, you know, those passionate talks where he's trying to pump everybody up. So it's almost like there's two different types of leaders on that team, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Curry's the guy who you follow because, he puts in the work. And then you have Draymond, who definitely putting in the work, but he's also, you know, he's bringing the heart. And he's bringing the passion to the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's such a interesting debate when you talk about the best player versus the best leader. I agree with everything you guys said about Steph Curry. I'm on the wagon of Draymond being the leader of that team, just because, like you said, the emotional guy, like he's the glue guy for the team, right? And for him to even have the balls to step up to KD after that, you know, that mistake, like he had the turnovers, whatever, and KD was right. Let's be real. Like KD was right. He should have passed him the ball, but like for Draymond to, even though he was in the wrong in terms of like bringing up, you know, his free agency and everything, but like Draymond knew that what he had to do was for the best for the team overall. Like that's what needed to be said at the time, because there was a lot of distraction in terms of KD and his free agency, right? And like Draymond in his own way, like he tried to get the communication lines open. Like he tried to bring everything to light, and like whether or not he did it in the right way, like that's debatable. But I think his heart and his intent was along the right path, and I like Draymond as a leader. Another player that I would say that's a great leader in today's modern NBA is Jimmy Butler. Like he's one of those guys where Mitch, I know you're going to give the C- on this, but
C plus.
C plus. But I think Butler, in terms of being a player, being a person, individual that exhibits leadership abilities on and off the court. Like he talks the talk, we all know that. Like he goes at the you know, his own players in practice, but he's put in the work to back it up too, and he plays, you know, he puts everything out on the line. And I think like that's, like you said, when you're talking about leading by example and leading vocally, he's a player that exhibits that.
So I find it interesting that you said Butler, and I agree. Like Butler, if you're playing with someone like Butler and you are giving 100%, if he feels that you're putting 100%, he respects you, and he will, you know, he will be like, you're doing awesome. He's super encouraging if that's what's happening. But what if you're giving 100% and he doesn't think you're giving 100%? He's going to jump on you and say you're not doing enough. And if you're the other guy and you're like, I'm doing as much as I can, but it's just not up to what he thinks you should be doing, I think that's where it gets tricky in him being, you know, the leader of a team. I think if you're a good leader, no matter who you're working with or you're playing with, you got to know how to get the best out of the people around you. And I think when Butler kind of goes off the rails and starts railing on people, saying that they're not trying hard enough, they're not getting better, they're not putting in as much work as he is, no one's going to put as much work. Everyone's different, right? So I think for him to start calling people out in that sense, to me, that's not necessarily being a good leader. I think he definitely leads by example, but if you're not getting the best out of the people around you, that's not, I think, what a good leader should be doing.
That's fair.
That's tough. Like I agree with Mitchell's point. I think Jimmy Butler, he's just hungry. You know, he comes from a different cloth. You know, like he coming from nothing, he had to earn his keep. And I think that's why he challenges so much of he demands so much of his team, because he's been through so many challenges himself. At the same token, though, by asking for so much, I do think you bring out the best in people. But I do agree, I didn't like the way he handled the media about it. You know, like the fact that he would openly say, I expected more from these teammates. These guys are not working as hard as me. That's something you leave inside the locker room. So I think that was just a really bad showing. And it just, you're right, it doesn't bring out the best in players. Like on that end, I think who's done it really well, and I think it's kind of almost given, but LeBron James, I think he continues to surprise me. Like we all know he's a good leader, but he truly is. When they brought Tyson Chandler, he embraced them instantly. Like that's my guy. You know, that like he praises players when they do well. He calls people his team. Like when you're on his team, he invests in you. right? And I think that's the sign of a leader. Like, regardless of what your background is, like, look at Lance Stevenson. People gave Lance a lot of trouble for the fact of the type of player he was, how controversial he was, specifically LeBron. But as soon as he got into the team, you can see how well that team's playing together, just in terms of the chemistry. Winning or losing, they're having fun, right? And I think as a leader, he clicks all the boxes, man. Like, this guy truly is a transcendent leader, and there's not many players like him in the league, man.
I agree. Like, he to me he's a difference between, a good leader and say someone like, again, this might cause a lot of hate, but Kobe Bryant, people like that, where and Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler and Kobe are probably cut from the similar cloth.
True.
Even Michael Jordan, to be honest.
Michael Jordan,
Even
too.
Michael Jordan.
They're all cut from the similar cloth, right? But the thing with LeBron is he's humble.
He is.
He's the best player on the planet, yet he's almost the most humble about it, considering how good he actually is.
And he gives you the shine, right? Like, whereas with Kobe, he will break you down to show, saying, I'm better than you. You need to work harder. Like, I'll play you to 100. I'll win literally 100 to 1.
Like him and Smush Parker. You remember that?
Like, goodness, man.
calling
Kwame
him out.
Brown. Kwame Brown. But that was the ruthlessness of, like, for better or for worse, he demonstrated success. Right. And like, it's hard for us to say, that's a bad leader when he's got the
That was
to
just
show
his
for it.
style. That was just his
Exactly.
leadership style.
But I do think LeBron, he brings out the best style of a leader, and that's why I keep saying, man, best on the planet, yo. It's just, he's the GOAT. Since season 1, man. When we were talking about it, I was like, this man is the GOAT already. Like,
Frankie's
already.
bring out the GOAT.
Already, man.
Yeah, I think we all mentioned it in terms of LeBron's, greatness and how he displays it in so many different aspects. What's interesting, as you guys were mentioning it, about how LeBron's so humble, he knows that he's the best player on the planet, and he's still able to defer and delegate. Let's remember that he played with Dwayne Wade. And I think what's interesting now is that, when he first got to Miami, like both of them, it was Wade County. It was Wade County. And even when they talk about and they reflect back on that championship run, LeBron attributed a lot of that success to Wade's ability to be like, hey, after that first year when they lost in the finals, they went off, they took some time to reflect, and then they went to the Bahamas together. And he said that Dwayne Wade sat him down and told him, listen, like, for us to hit that next level, for us to win that championship, we need you, LeBron, to be the Superman.
Yeah.
And like LeBron, his reaction was like, really? Like Wade County, Miami, like they were both in their prime, right? For Wade to
take a step back, man.
to
That
be
was
able
big.
to assess his ego and be like, hey, he recognizes talent. He recognizes that LeBron is the best player in the world. And like I'm actually curious to see, when it's all said and done, like if LeBron ever does like a 30 for 30 about his career, how much of that he's gonna give credit to in terms of like what he's like, how he's learned to become a leader.
I totally agree, man. And that's a good point you bring up, because if you look at LeBron's career, I think it took till the second year on the Heat for him to become the leader he was.
True.
Because that first Cleveland stint, he was way too young. He was carrying this team on his back, and it was just the pure LeBron train. Like, I'm so good, I'm going to try to carry this team. But he wasn't necessarily a developing leader. And even on the first year in the Heat, he was just the villain. But in that second year, they really brought it all together. And since that point, LeBron's just been he's been a complete player, and he's been a complete leader. And I totally agree, man. I think he learned that from D-Wade. And if you look at how D-Wade's played now and just his progression too, he's been a gracious leader. He's been a gracious star that's just transitioned into the later stage of the game.
Yeah, I think to add to that, like Wade's always had the ability to look beyond the current year and look towards the future, right? Like deferring to LeBron or even being able to come off the bench as a sixth man. Like he always understood where the team needed to go, where he wanted the team to go, and like what his role would be in the future. And he always like, I think that's what's different when you look at a player like D-Wade and Melo, right? Like Melo was always reactive in terms of like his development. Like, oh, I got to come off the bench. Okay, now let me learn how to come off the bench. Versus Wade was like, I'm still a starter in the league. I can be a starter, but the best role for me is to be a bench player for this team. Let me start learning this now. Well, before I technically need to start, moving back.
Yeah, he became I think he's the Heat's leading scorer off the bench in history now.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Off the bench too? Oh, wow.
So like, yeah, Wade is definitely an example of, he's an older guy who went back to Miami full of young guys and was like, hey, I'm going to take all these guys under my wing. And you can see the development, right? You see players like Josh Richardson Justice Winslow.
Tyler Johnson's been stepping up too.
Yeah.
They've all been stepping up, and
Even Whiteside. Even
and I think
too,
that
right?
a lot of that has to do with Wade taking that leadership role. And even when you look at players like Vince Carter, right? Vince Carter was 41 now, and he's been in the league for so long, and he's going to all these teams. Like he went to Atlanta, he went to Sacramento, and this is a guy that teams are like, we want Vince on our team. You know, I think he had a rocky start in Toronto, but he definitely learned, and you can just tell by the way that everyone respects Vince now. And he's the type of guy that, like, hey, he's in your locker room, he's going to make a good impact on your players through his leadership.
Right. So how much of this do you think, in terms of leadership, I know this podcast is running a little bit long, but like I think this is such interesting discussion. Like, do you think leadership is something that you can internally learn, or is it something that has to be taught to you? Because as you guys are talking, as we're reflecting on Wade's like ability to, you know, like be humble and everything, like for when he first started, when he was a rookie, Shaq was there. Like, so Shaq was a player that actually, you know, he was on his decline, and he, you know, when he joined Miami, one of the first questions are like, oh, Shaq, you know, whose team it is? He shut it all down. He's like, listen, this is Dwayne Wade's team. We're not going to have this discussion at all this season. So, like, in some respects, Wade was lucky in that he had Shaq's, you know, he learned from Shaq in that rookie season that, like, you need to defer. Like, doesn't matter how good you are. Like, how much of that do you think is a learned skill versus, you know, learning from others?
I think some people just have it in them from the beginning. If you look at a player like Tim Duncan as an example, he's been a leader since the day he started, you know, since his day he started with the Spurs. And he's a quiet leader. He's so consistent, but his leadership has always shone through, right? And maybe it's a product of being on the team with Pops, but it's something that he always had in him. If you look at a player like LeBron, I kind of agree to your point. Like, he definitely developed that based on the product of his situation. Learning with D Wade, having the opportunity to go back to Cleveland, and then going to the Lakers. Like, these were all moments in which it offered him the ability to learn more as a leader and develop more as a leader, and he thrived. He embraced that. But some, I gotta admit, man, I think like Tim Duncan is one of the prototypical examples of a born leader, right? Just from day one, he doesn't need to be loud because he knows what type of leader he is, right? And it just translated through his entire career.
I think one of the interesting things too, but especially about, like, you know, professional sports and the NBA, is all these guys, you know, growing up, they're the leaders of their teams. All these are the best players in the world, right? And because they're the best players, naturally, I think teams and fans want to put these guys in that leadership position just because they're the best. You know, they'll look at a guy and be like, you're the best player on this team, you should be the leader. Right. But when you look at guys like, you know, say someone like DeMarcus Cousins, all the talent in the world, I don't think anyone would say he's a good leader. And he, you know, he had the chance to develop that. He was unquestioned franchise guy in Sacramento. He was never the leader though, right? And part of it is there was no one to learn it from. But it's also he was put in the position to become that guy and just never did. So I think it's, you know, it depends on the person. I think good leaders are the ones who you put them in a certain situation and they adapt and they figure it out how to adapt to that situation. I think there's those, you know, people who will say you're born with it. Yeah. You know, I agree to that to a certain extent, but I think it's really more important that to be a good leader, you have to be someone who can learn and someone who can learn to adapt to a situation.
Be receptive of coaching, right? Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of the, you know, obviously when you talk about players' legacies, like the player itself gets a lot of that recognition, but it's like, who's the coach that's teaching them? Like who are the people that's around them? And yeah, Mitch, to your point, like I totally agree with that. Like, you know, players always say that, you know, talent and skill can get you into the NBA, but like how you excel in the NBA, it's like it's more than that, right? It's intangible. It's just like your ability to learn, your discipline. Like that's all stuff that you can't teach in high school. It's like, or like coaches will try to teach you. Like it's just whether or not you're receptive to taking that and learning that.
I think a lot of it also, you know, if you're a humble person and you're willing to take criticism, you're going to learn to, you know, you take that and you kind of you'll project it onto the people around you. And I think those are the types of guys that, you know, people want to be around, and because you want to be around them, you listen to them. And those are the guys that make the best leaders.
Yeah. And yeah, because on the flip side, we talked about like who's a great leader, and like you look at on the other side, right? Like we've seen players like a Dwight Howard who, with all the potential in the world, like when we talked about John Wall as well, like they just never had the knack, I guess, to really, absorb all the coaching. Like with Dwight, when he was with LA, he's honestly, if you look at Dwight, he's had so many opportunities, man. He's played alongside James Harden, Kobe Bryant. Like he's had so many teams and great situations where he could have taken the learnings and like, I guess, elevated into the next level of as a player. But even when he had that free agent season in the Lakers, he was with Steve Nash and Kobe Bryant. Kobe told him straight up, like, yo, Dwight, stay, like, re-sign with us. I'm going to teach you how to be a champion. And he decided to bolt, man. Like,
yeah, once Kobe tore his Achilles, man, it was over. He was out, man.
I think a lot of it also, again, because these guys grow up, being told you're the best.
True.
You're going to be in NBA. You're the best player we've ever seen. You get an ego. And I think that's just a natural thing. Like, again, someone like LeBron James, your games are being broadcast in high school on ESPN.
He's the chosen one, man.
Yeah, but that's what makes him so special, though,
exactly,
man.
right?
That's what makes him so
humble.
He's so incredibly humble. And, like, I'll never forget, when he won that second ring, he was like, I ain't even supposed to be here. You know what I mean? Like, the fact, like, the way he said it, I ain't even supposed to be here. I ain't got no worries. I ain't even supposed to be here. Like, just his mentality, I was like, wow, this guy, like, he's on top of the world. He can, dude, his stock is the highest it's ever been. Yet he's so humble in his approach to it.
Was that humble though? That was like humble brag, yo.
I ain't even supposed to an extent, but like I really think you're right. I think it didn't sound great at first, but you look at all the actions he took right after that. It just showed this guy like he's investing back into his community. He's putting money into the school system, and you don't see him bragging about his rings. And like if you look at the moment he won back on Cleveland too, he gave every player on the team a shout out. You know what I mean? When he went back to Cleveland, he called out every single player, the contributions they played through the year. And I was like, man, this is the sign. This is the demonstration of an incredible leader. And that's why I'm like telling you, man, this guy, I've been telling you, GOAT since day one, man. GOAT since day one.
I know we're running a bit long, but since we were kind of acknowledging LeBron's probably the best leader, one of the best leaders the NBA's ever seen. Is there anyone coming up next, you think?
You know who I think is actually going to be a really good leader? I think Giannis Antetokounmpo can be an incredible leader because if you watch some of his first second year, he was so young. And like you watch his videos of him just talking about how he wants to be the greatest ever. And he doesn't come from much either. Like for him as a player, he comes from very humble beginnings. And to see his progression to be the star he is, he's filling out into his body. He's really starting to really get into the superstar status. But I think he's got a good sense of where he came from. And when he talks about the difference of, the departure of Jason Kidd with the new coach, he seems to have it all there. And he's still flying under the radar. You know what I mean? Like the Milwaukee Bucks is not a superstar city. It's not like, a massive city. It's not filled with the lights. I think he's a secret, man. He is going to be that next guy. I really think like Giannis, he's in the best place to be right now. The city shelters him. The city takes care of him. He's going to be one of those low-key leaders that we see step up into the future.
He's already on the NBA 2K cover, man. What do you mean he's low-key, yo?
No, but for the numbers he's putting up, like I don't think people are talking enough about the numbers that he's putting up are ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he does not like you don't see Giannis like shouting out how good he is, right? Like, hey, like not like some other stars we've seen before. Like, he doesn't call and say pay me. He's not like Jimmy Butler and stuff like that. He's a quiet star in his own way, and I really think he's got the potential to be an incredible leader, especially for the fact of where he's come from.
For me, I like that pick, but at the same time, like to me with Giannis, I do think there's a danger of him leaving, and I think him leaving Milwaukee will kind of diminish that in the long run.
That'll expose him.
To be honest, when I look around the league, is there anyone that jumps out to me that could become a leader like LeBron? I honestly
don't know. Man.
Don't really see it.
Man, it's tough.
I don't think there's anyone who's shown how good, like they're an amazing player, yet they're also amazing as just a leader. I think Steph is kind of up there, but in terms of someone like LeBron, I think it's gonna be tough. Like
it's tough. LeBron's just got everything, man. Like he's got the basketball ability, he's got the IQ, but he's also got like the off the court personality that makes him such a good leader. You know what I mean? No drama issues. Like he's so consistent with his like investment in the community. There's no flaws with LeBron James, man. Like there's no flaws, and I think you're right. There's no other players on the horizon that have that same type of potential. I think Donovan Mitchell, he had a good showing last year, and he had a good.
He's fearless.
He's fearless, and he spoke well. You know, like I think he speaks very well for a young rookie, or as a young rookie last year. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's got some shine, and it's like still a little bit early to prove himself. Mm-hmm. But dude, LeBron's gonna be missed, man. And it makes me sad as to say this because like seeing LeBron now in the Lakers, I realize his era is slowly coming to an end. Like it's gonna break my heart when we see LeBron play his last game.
Yeah,
dude, it's gonna break my heart when we see LeBron leave, man.
Chuck said it best. We got to appreciate greatness while we're witnessing it, and I agree with everything you guys are saying. Like, look at the list. Like, there's so many talented players, but I think it's just like leadership is a lost art. I think it's an old school way of thinking where you really have to have a team first mentality, and it's so hard for these young players coming up to have that just because of social media. And like you said, Mitch, like there's so much recognition given to these guys individually that like they lose that ability to see the team collectively, right? Like I mean there's players that I can see, you know, that have the Kobe leadership mentality, like even like a Westbrook, like he's going down your throat, like he has that kind of killer instinct, but to say you're a good leader overall, there's not many guys that have that, man. Like it's very true. I don't even want to put a player in that same caliber as LeBron.
Different levels, man. There's levels to this game. Levels to this game.
Man. All right, man. Any last thoughts on that?
Good discussions, man. Good.
Oh, I just want to maybe add, you know, before I know we talked about LeBron a lot. I just want to kind of call out that he's averaging basically the same amount of points, rebounds, and assists that he did when in his second year, when he's 20 years old. He's doing this at 34.
Dude, he's a beast, man.
And that maintenance of his body too, right? I think part of that leadership is dedicating your life to it, and he's one of those players that's done it. Another player that's done it on I wouldn't say to that same level, but I would say in close to is D Wade in terms of how he's taking care of his body, like how he's.
I wouldn't even say so. To be honest, the only player that I think comes close to the consistency is Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan's the only player I think, like from the beginning of his career to the end, relatively consistent. You know what I mean? Stats were just as solid. LeBron's just a freak. He's an outlier. Like I don't think you'll see a player. It's almost unfair, but it is. You know, it's real. He does it day in, day out. Man.
Right now, he's averaging the most points he's averaged since before this, when he was 25. 25 was the last time he was averaging this many points.
LeBron?
Yeah. It's almost 10 years.
LeGoat.
And he got better.
It's LeGoat, man. What can you say? I think he's probably got one more year. He's probably got 1 or 2 more years in terms of the dominance. I'll say that. 1 or 2 more years of this absolute dominance.
All right. Before Frankie goes off and offends our listeners, man, let's, you know. But hey, when it's all said and done, I think we all gotta revisit this GOAT discussion because it's gonna be a lot closer than people
will
think,
study
man.
LeBron James for years.
Yeah.
They will be a study case.
It's that bias right now, that the fact that he's still playing, people refuse to like look at his career as a whole and compare it to Jordan.
GOAT status already, man.
It is what it is. All right, cool. So let's keep it moving. Quickly, let's look at 3 upcoming games for next week. We got some good ones lined up for next week. We got the first one, Golden State at Toronto. The first of the 2 meeting between these two. This one's on Thursday night. This one's at Toronto. Let's start it off, man. Who's taking the first stab at this?
I'm saying the Toronto Raptors. Ooh. They're just on a mission. And I think playing the Golden State Warriors, they will be circling this in their calendar. This will be a statement game. And they're starting to gel, man. The team's healthy. Steph Curry might make a return on Thursday, but I don't think it's going to matter.
Still questionable?
It's saying that he could make his return.
I don't think it matters, man.
Draymond's still out? I think Draymond might be still out still.
It don't matter, man. I'm going Toronto all the way on this one.
I'm also going Toronto.
I'm also going to say Toronto. Toronto's at home, right?
KD's going to put up 50 probably. With Drake in the building? All right, the next one we got Indiana at Sacramento on Saturday. Two teams that are, they're floating around.
This is a good matchup of like mid-tier teams. I think Sacramento's going to take this. I think they've got some young pieces that are all trying to step up. Indiana is still trying to figure it together. They haven't really been the same team they were last year. Oladipo is just not just looking the same. So I kind of think Sacramento. I'm going to give it to Sacramento, man. These young kids are ready.
De'Aaron Fox. Mitch, who you got?
I'm gonna go with. Wait, is Oladipo playing?
He's playing.
I don't know. He's. I don't know. It might be a game time decision. I don't know.
I'm gonna say Sacramento, just because. I mean, they're playing at home. Indiana's been actually pretty good on the road, but I'm gonna give it to Sacramento.
I will. I'll go Indiana on this one. I also agree Sacramento's been playing out of their minds, but. Just to mix it up, going Indy, and then we got Clippers at Dallas. This one is Sunday. Again, Clippers are first in the West as we're recording
shocking.
this.
That is
Clippers
shocking.
Have been holding their own, man.
But I don't think they take this one, man. I got to give it to Dallas and Doncic. Like, dude, that team is solid right now too. They're fun to watch. I think their up-tempo game is gonna take the Clippers out. I'm gonna give it to Dallas, man.
Mitch.
I'm going to go with the Clippers on this one. I think that they match up really well with the Mavs. Although the Mavs I'm looking at it, Mavs are 8-2 at home, so that's pretty good. But I'm going Clippers.
I agree with you. I think now that the Clippers have a healthy Beverly and Avery Bradley, dude, they're gonna shut it down, man. They're gonna shut down Doncic. So, all right, cool. So I'm also going with the Clips. And so we appreciate you guys, sticking with us on this episode. We do know it's running a bit long, but listen, we hopefully these discussions were fun, were entertaining. This is definitely when you talk about leadership in the NBA, it's something that is kind of a lost art, but we all know how important it is. So let us know your takes on that. Feel free to hit us up on Twitter, on Instagram. Just message us, send us an email, whatever it is, #MoBucketsPodcast. Give us your take too, because we want to make this interactive. We were curious to know what you guys think as well. All our information you can find on our website at mobucketspodcast.com. That includes, listening to this podcast, wherever you guys find it, articles, analysis, opinion pieces, social media channels. Everything is all conveniently set up for y'all. So check us out on our website, mobucketspodcast.com. Anything else, fellas?
Good.
All good.
Nothing else? Okay. Until next time, keep getting buckets. Peace.